Well, all that remains of this Week 10 is tomorrow night's Kansas City-Pittsburgh game. What a wild Sunday it was, capped off with a great one. Old school football, a slobber knocker. The Texans out-muscling the Chicago Bears 13-6. The game was played in the pouring rain. By the end, the field was a mess. There was some ugly football, as there always is in that type of weather. Neither offense reaching 250 total yards. The defense is dominating. Really, Arian Foster was the lone offensive player on either team who really shined, and he was the difference in the game. Neither team had much success passing the ball. Houston passing for less than 100 yards. Jay Cutler didn't play in the second half, sustained a concussion late in the first half, but Cutler was awful in the first half. He was halfway into one of those patented Jay Cutler 4 or 5 interception and 5 or 6 sack games. Jason Campbell came in and played better. Campbell played better than Cutler in the game. Obviously, there's no quarterback controversy in Chicago. Jay Cutler is their guy, but Campbell played well. And who knows if Cutler will play next week. And Chicago's clearly upgraded that backup quarterback position. Remember, they went out and got Campbell in the offseason last year when Cutler was hurt. It was an absolute disaster. Caleb Haney had to come in and start. But both of these teams, elite teams, I believe. I haven't been a big believer in the Bears, mainly because of Jay Cutler, but after watching them play for 4 quarters, every time you watch the Bears play, you can't help but really be impressed by that defense. And the Bears can run the ball, too. They didn't run it very well tonight, but they've run it well all season. If Cutler can just not mess it up, if he can just not mess it up like he was halfway into doing in this game tonight, I think the Bears could go a long, long way in the NFC, and I do think the Texans are among the very best teams in the AFC. But anyway, it was a bizarre Sunday. That was a fitting way to end the Sunday with sort of a weird game with all the weather and no offense. I mean, those two teams, Houston and Chicago, they average a combined 59 points a game and 13-6 the final. But that wasn't the only bizarre result. Cincinnati Bengals blowing out the New York Giants. Tennessee Titans blowing somebody out. The Miami Dolphins, not that great a team, but to see Tennessee blow anybody out, certainly a surprise. The 3-5 New Orleans Saints taking down the last undefeated team in the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons. Saints pulling out a wild one, 31-27 at home over the Falcons. And we had our first tie in the NFL since 2008. San Francisco 49ers and St. Louis Rams playing to a 24-24 tie. A result I was very happy with because I was backing the Rams plus 11 in that game. So I watched the end of that game with a smile on my face, really did not care who won. I told my wife during the overtime, I felt like it was like a victory lap. The day had concluded. The day was profitable. We did win 2 out of our 3 bets today. So just interesting for me to see how that game finished. And quite frankly, the Rams blew that game. They had every opportunity to win that game. They should have won that game. They had it under control, and then sort of a bad swing of momentum in the fourth quarter. Niners scored 2 touchdowns in a 17-second span. But then the Rams drove down the field, threw a touchdown pass. Sam Bradford did that should have been a game-winning touchdown pass. Their defense sort of collapsed, allowed the Niners to drive the length of the field. Anyway, game ended up going into overtime. Rams had some opportunities to win it in overtime. Their kicker, Greg Zuerlein, made a 53-yard field goal, but they were called for a penalty, an offensive penalty, delay a game. And it was a close delay a game, too. Sometimes, because the delay a game, it's not like NBA basketball, we know, like where the buzzer goes off and a light goes off and it's hard and fast. The exact rule reads when the official looks at the clock and he looks down at the ball, if the ball's not snapped. We see a lot of times as the clock turns to 0 and the ball's snapping, officials sort of let it go. They did not in this situation. They called the penalty, moved the Rams back 5 yards. Zuerlein then missed the field goal. But anyway, going into the day, I think Rams fans and probably the Rams themselves would have taken a 24-24 tie. St. Louis not out of anything, 3-5-1 now on the season. They need to keep playing well, but you know what? This team is improving. You take the New England game out of it, which was a disaster, and the St. Louis Rams have been a good, solid football team this year. Jeff Fisher has done a great job of coaching them. San Francisco did not play well on defense today. They got the hang of it after the first couple of quarters, but it was the worst I've seen the San Francisco defense look. Remember, St. Louis was only averaging 17 points a game coming into that game, but like I said, I was quite happy with the result because I was backing the St. Louis Rams. I felt it was too many points. I guess one of the games I want to start with, I just mentioned there, is the New Orleans-Atlanta game. What an exciting game that was, back and forth, 31-27. The Saints now 15-3 against the spread in their last 18 home games. This was the first time they'd been a home underdog in years. They were a 1-point home underdog in the game, but they did come out with the win, and really, you can't fault. I mean, it's hard to fault anybody. Hard to fault Matt Ryan. I guess both defenses you can fault. There was not a whole lot of defense played in the game. 896 total yards in the game. The Saints were more balanced. I don't know if it's by design since Joe Vitt came back a couple of games ago, but the Saints have been running the ball more in these last couple of weeks. Ran for over 150 yards in the game today. But it was a back-and-forth game. Felt like whoever had the ball last, and Atlanta did have the ball last, and they almost won the game. Roddy White got behind the defense. That Saints defense is so bad. Roddy White got behind the defense with less than 20 seconds left, and really he just stopped running. If he had kept running his route, I think the Matt Ryan pass would have hit him in stride. So Atlanta had the ball last. They almost pulled it off. They just ran out of time, but New Orleans came out with a 31-27 victory. Atlanta now 8-1. New Orleans 4-5, sneaking maybe back into the outer fringes of wild card contention. But they've got a tough schedule coming up. I still don't like the Saints' chances in terms of the playoff picture. Now, another NFC South team who I do like their chances, or at least I like them more. What about the Tampa Bay Bucks? Tampa just keeps on rolling. Won another one today, 34-24 over the San Diego Chargers. The Bucks were 1-3 at one point. They're now 5-4. Their offense has really come to life over the last 4 games. Even though today, this game, the Tampa offense really wasn't that lively. It wasn't as good as they were over the last couple of weeks. Only 279 total yards. The Chargers badly outgained the Bucks, 426 total yards to 279. 23 first downs for San Diego, only 12 for Tampa Bay. But San Diego, Phillip Rivers, 2 interceptions, 1 extremely costly. In the fourth quarter, San Diego down by 3 and driving. Rivers threw, one of the worst passes you were ever going to see a professional quarterback throw. If you've not seen this pass yet, you've got to see it. You've got to see it from every angle. You just don't, a lot of times you think, well, where was he throwing it? But maybe the receiver ran the wrong route. It was clear what was going on here. Rivers was flushed out of the pocket, rolled out of the pocket, and just threw it. Instead of throwing it over the defensive back's head, just threw it right to him. And it was sort of amusing. Defensive back Leonard Johnson, Buccaneers defensive back, if you haven't heard his post-game interview, interesting, refreshing honesty. He did, most athletes or whatever, they always just sort of seems like they give you the same sort of cliche business, what they think you want to hear. But Leonard Johnson said he was surprised the ball was coming at him, and somebody asked him, what do you think Rivers was thinking? And Johnson just paused, and he said, I have no clue. And I don't think anybody else has a clue either. If you haven't seen the play, you should see the play. An absolute disaster. Gave the Bucs a 10-point lead. Was really the difference in that game. That game was a back-and-forth game up to that point. San Diego has now completely unraveled. This team, not only the interception return for a touchdown, they also allowed a block punt return for a touchdown. That's how you outgain a team by almost 150 yards and lose by 10. But take nothing away from the Tampa Bay Bucs. So once again, they're vulnerable in the secondary again. This Bucs team came into this game last in the NFL in pass defense, and Rivers threw for over 330 yards. But that Bucs defense has been opportunistic. Came up with turnovers in the right time last week and did it again today. Pulled out a 34-24 win over the San Diego Chargers. Again, Bucs now 5-4. Looking good in the NFC wild card picture. I don't think the Bucs are going to be able to catch Atlanta, so it will be the wild card they'll be looking at if they want to get into the playoffs. Another team that will probably be angling for a wild card berth in the NFC, unless they can catch the Niners in their division, but the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle with another dominating home performance today. Another dominating home performance. I'll say that slowly. Outside of the New Orleans Saints. Again, the Saints 15-3 against the spread in their last 18 games at home. Outside of them, you can't find a better home team than Seattle. And Seattle's been better at home than the Saints this season. It's just the Saints have been so good at home over a sustained period of time now. And once again at home, beating the undefeated Falcons today. But the Seahawks improved to 5-0 at home, 5-0 against the spread at home, 28-7 win over the New York Jets. They did it Seahawks, but Russell Wilson played well. I'm tired of it's not that I'm down on Russell Wilson, but I feel like every week when I talk about the Seahawks, I mention, because when you examine this team, it's hard not to notice that they're last in the league in pass yards per game. Heading into this week's game, they were dead last in the NFL in pass yards per game. That thing kind of sticks out. When you're looking at this game, at these games, the strengths and weaknesses of both teams, and you see Seattle has an excellent defense. They have a top 10 rushing attack. And even though Russell Wilson's played well for a rookie, you think, well, they're last in the NFL in pass yards per game. They don't pass for a whole lot of yards. They don't gain a whole lot of yards. They don't score a whole lot of points. But after seeing Russell Wilson again today, I'm tired of even being halfway negative about this guy. I'm convinced the only reason they don't throw for a lot of yards is because it's by design. They're just intentionally conservative. Aside from one bad turnover Russell Wilson did have, which led to the only Jet points of the day, a fumble that was returned for a touchdown, he played really well in the game, was really impressed with him. Badly outplayed Mark Sanchez. Sanchez, 9 of 22, 124 yards and an interception. The New York Jets offense did not score a single point. As we said, the Jets' only points coming on a defensive touchdown. Rex Ryan stood up in a post-game press conference, said his usual, blah, 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 we're going to keep fighting, still have a chance at the playoffs. Then said Mark Sanchez would still be his quarterback. At this point, why? I mean, everybody coming into the season who said the Jets only acquired Tim Tebow for just a prop or just to sell tickets, they look totally right. Because if you're not turning Tim Tebow at this point, I mean, I think last year, the year before, when, 50-year-old Mark Brunell was a Jets backup, I think at this point of the season, people would have been calling for Mark Brunell. I mean, on any team, you would question a quarterback change when your quarterback statistically has been as bad as Mark Sanchez, your offense has been as bad as this Jets offense has been, and the team's season is sinking. I mean, they are absolutely sinking like a stone, 3-6. They probably have to go 6-1 out the rest of the way to have a chance at the playoffs. But right now, it's just ridiculous to even mention the playoffs with this team, the New York Jets. But doesn't stop their coaches and players from mentioning it, as Rex Ryan did again today in his post-game press conference. I just don't understand why they're not turning Tim Tebow in this situation. I really don't. And for those of you who say, the coaches know more than you do, they see them both in practice, they say, well, you know what? The coaches are not always right in this situation. Sometimes the fans are right. You want proof? Look at last year's Denver Broncos team. Last year's Denver Broncos team, all you heard at the beginning of the year was, Tim Tebow, he's the third or fourth best quarterback in practice. I'm quite sure that Kyle Orton, that Mark Sanchez, in practice, in shorts, they can probably throw 15-yard outs to a cone more accurately than Tim Tebow can. But we've seen what Tim Tebow does when he gets on a football field. I mean, the competitiveness this guy shows, his running ability. Look what he did for Denver last year. Again, the beginning of the season, the Denver coaches, the Denver management saying the same type of things Rex Ryan saying. Kyle Orton's our quarterback. Kyle Orton gives us the best chance to win. Denver waited until they were 1-4. Put in Tim Tebow at that point. The fans had been clamoring for Tebow. The coaching staff hadn't wanted to put him in until then. Obviously, when Tebow was put in, it became a running joke how uncomfortable John Elway looked up in his box at all the success. And truth be told, John Elway turned out to not want Tebow, shipped him off at the end of the season. So in that situation in Denver last year, obviously the coaches and management were wrong. Who knows what the Broncos would have done if Tebow had been playing the whole year? I mean, the only thing that changed from when the Broncos were 1-4 to when they put Tebow in and ended up finishing 8-8, winning their division and winning a playoff game, the only thing that changed was they shipped off their best wide receiver, Brandon Lloyd. Shipped off their best wide receiver. Aside from that, defense was the same defense there in those first 5 games. Now, the Broncos changed their style of play, started running the football more, led the league in rushing by a wide margin when Tebow was the quarterback. Shortened games, that helped their defense. The Broncos games became a lot more low scoring. I don't understand why the Jets don't try it. I really don't. But I guess, these guys are paid to make decisions. I don't doubt Rex Ryan and Tony Sparano's football acumen. These guys are football men. They've been in the game their whole lives. I'm sure they know a whole lot more about football than me. Probably forgotten more about football than I know. However, I do question their overall intelligence, particularly Rex Ryan. I just don't think he's a very intelligent person. I can have my opinion on it, and he might have his opinion on me if he ever saw my live stream or any of these recordings. But after seeing Rex Ryan again today in the press conference, it struck me, he's just not that sharp. He's just not. He's all bluster and bravado. And again, he's clearly a motivator, a good defensive football coach. You can't argue with his track record. I just don't know if I'd want somebody like Rex Ryan calling shots in my organization. And I guess I'm not alone in that opinion. I guess I'm not going out on any limb. I'm sure somebody's listening to me right now being like, yeah, no kidding. You don't want Rex Ryan calling the shots in your organization. But the Jets absolutely sinking now. Their season has turned into a disaster. They are 3-6. And there's a lot of I told you so's going out there right now. A lot of people were predicting this exact mess for the New York Jets. Turns out that Week 1 blowout win over the Buffalo Bills was a total mirage. The Jets look just about done. Another 3-6 team that looks completely done is the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia losing again today, 38-23 to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this was another result I was happy to see because I was backing the Cowboys. Michael Vick left that game with a concussion. And similar to the Chicago Bears situation, Nick Foles came in. I don't know if he played better than Michael Vick, but the offense started moving. Foles came in, the offense was moving. Now, he did make a couple of bad mistakes, turned the ball over twice. One of the turnovers in particular, a pick six, was a real game changer. But Foles didn't look bad. Threw for 220 yards on 22 of 32 passing. Looked a lot better than I thought he would. Foles, I saw him play in college a lot in Arizona. I wasn't thinking that Nick Foles was ready to come in and play good football. But so we saw 3 starting quarterbacks concussed. Alex Smith concussed in that San Francisco game. Colin Kaepernick came in and finished that one out. Michael Vick and Jay Cutler, all concussed, all couldn't finish the games. Anyway, Dallas wins that game 38-23, and despite the Cowboys, they seem to be bumbling and they seem to throw games away every week. No turnovers this week, and now they find themselves only a game out of first in the loss column in the NFC East because the Giants, again, got blown out today by the Cincinnati Bengals, so the Giants are beginning to weaken. You can't like the way that New York Giants defense has looked over the last few weeks. They have really been slipping, but we've seen in years past, the Giants defense, even last year, they can be really bad at times. Then it seems like they can sort of turn it on, can sort of play when they want to play. So hopefully they'll decide to turn it on soon. Because don't look now, but the Dallas Cowboys are right in their rearview mirror after a 38-23 win today. Well, obviously there are a few more games out there today, but those are the ones that caught my eye. Again, one more game this week. Pittsburgh at home over the lowly Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City might be the worst team in the entire NFL. Pittsburgh, an 11.5-point favorite in this game on BETDAQ. 42 is a total. We'll have a full preview of that game up on the site here in a matter of hours. Until then, I'm John Arnette for BETDAQ NFL.